The Feed the Future Livestock Systems Innovation Lab welcomes you to this recorded module entitled The Network Structure of Livestock Trade in West Africa. This module is based on a manuscript co-authored by myself, Valerio, and my colleagues on this slide, Olivia Walter, Brahima Sise, Mariata Elita, Harshata Munipirko, and Gregory Kiker. This presentation contains a brief introduction to regional livestock trade in West Africa, the findings from our network analysis of trade in the region, and the conclusions and way forward based on our findings. Livestock production, marketing, trade, and processing are major sources of livelihoods for West Africans. The cattle value chain alone is estimated to support 70 million people in the region. Moreover, with exports valued at $800 million per year, cattle is the most valued food product traded regionally in ECOWAS. However, much of this trade occurs through informal channels and is therefore unrecorded. When sufficient data exists, trade systems can be studied as a network, or as a group of entities such as people or places connected by shipments of goods. Network approaches can facilitate the study of the structure, dynamics, resilience, and robustness, and of the emergent properties of trade systems that might not be apparent when other analysis approaches are used. Livestock mobility has been studied using network methods in this region, in Mauritania, Togo, and Cameroon that are shown in orange in this map. Although these studies have differed in their purpose, methods, and data sources, they all found that a significant portion of animals and/or shipments cross at least one border. Thus, if the growing demand for livestock-derived foods in the region is to be met with animals raised in the region, a multi-country or regional understanding of livestock mobility is needed. But knowing that most of this trade does not flow through formal channels, what data could we leverage to achieve this? The Interstate Committee for Drought Prevention in the Sahel, better known as the CILS by its French acronym, has been tracking the direction and magnitude of regional agricultural trade in West Africa, including livestock. Livestock survey locations are mapped as orange dots in this figure. This map also shows the origins and destinations of live animal shipments recorded by the CILS from 2013 to 2017 in blue and green. We can see how they compare with previous studies. CILS's database includes shipments amongst Benin, Burkina Faso, Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, Guinea, Mali, Niger, Nigeria, Senegal, and Togo, and represent an opportunity to study livestock trade quantitatively as a regional network. For this study, we could only use complete records. We geolocated their origins and destinations, and after pre-processing, the resulting trade dataset consisted of movements originating primarily in Burkina Faso, Côte d'Ivoire, and Ghana, and arriving in Benin, Burkina Faso, Côte d'Ivoire, and Ghana, as this figure shows. We built the network by representing around 200 markets as nodes and around 42,000 livestock shipments as links. Each link was associated with a shipment size or link weight, and with a link direction. For example, the first entry on this table on the left occurred on a specific date between markets A and C that are both in the same country. 10 animal heads were involved in this movement. If we look at the arrow on the right, it is pointing out what this link will look like in the network. We see that it's a movement consisting of 10 animals or with weight 10 between markets A and C that are both in the same country, symbolized here by the color of the node. This process was followed for the 42,000 livestock shipments to build the network. Then we analyzed it with network statistics. Our first important finding was that despite the social nature of business ties in the region, cross-border trade corridors are well established spatially. We concluded this because we found that markets traded with on average 1 to 2 other markets only, but every 4 to 10 days. Also, many of the spatial trade patterns repeated through the years, such as animal shipments from northern Côte d'Ivoire towards the coast, or from northern Burkina Faso towards Ghana and Benin. Animals were shipped using a small proportion of all the possible routes, and almost no reciprocal shipments were observed between markets. Livestock flow primarily north to south, with some shipments going west, as the geographic network in this figure is showing. But not all markets traded with the same frequency. Livestock trade is organized around regional hubs, where a hub is a market that handles significantly more trade than most of the markets in the network. In this figure, the size of each market represents how many other markets it traded with, or its centrality in network terms. The figure shows that hubs tended to trade with peripheral markets, and that they also serve different functions, depending on their location. For instance, hubs closer to production areas, like the blue square on the left in Burkina Faso, received animals from many peripheral locations, while hubs near consumption areas, like the light green triangle on top in Côte d'Ivoire, diffused shipments to many consumption markets. An intuitive question to ask is whether there are spatial factors associated with the role that livestock markets play in the region. We found that on average, livestock trade hubs were more accessible than the rest of the markets. This figure shows the distance to the nearest road on the y-axis and to the nearest border on the x-axis of each market. For example, the Bouaké market on the right of the figure in blue was about 200 kilometers from the nearest border, but it wasn't an important road. Our findings indicate that accessibility or proximity to road infrastructure or to a border are drivers of trade. To identify important markets in the region, we quantified the disruption to trade that removing each market would cause. We identified 9 key markets. These key markets mapped in the figure were either border, urban, or export markets, and 3 of them were close to the Nigerian border. But what are the implications of our findings? Because it is organized around hubs, the regional network of livestock trade is vulnerable to targeted removals, where removal is defined as a cessation of trade because of a market, road, or border closure, or due to any other cause. This is particularly relevant under the West African reality, where market areas in northeastern Nigeria, for example, are targeted by Boko Haram. Regional livestock hubs should be protected because their functioning allows many less accessible peripheral markets to connect with consumer markets that are closer to the coast. Finally, our findings imply that multiple country approaches are needed to promote interregional trade in West Africa and highlight the importance of the quality and density of road infrastructure for regional trade. Looking forward, this and other quantitative knowledge on the structure of trade can help inform value chain interventions when resources are limited. For example, projects that concern mobility data collection, monitoring and control of livestock diseases, and vaccination strategies can be focused where their impact will be the greatest based on the structure of animal mobility. Many opportunities still exist to streamline ongoing and future trade and value chain research. To our knowledge, animal movement databases exist for Mauritania, Cameroon, Togo, and Senegal. And there are also opportunities to integrate other types of data sources, such as remote sensing information, road maps, and other more local qualitative studies. Network approaches open the potential to assess the effect of markets and border closures on trade flows and on food and nutrition security. This has gained relevance in the face of border closures during the coronavirus pandemic. If you would like to know more about the findings presented in this module, the name of the associated publications are in bold in this slide. The slide also contains all the work cited. Thank you for watching this recorded module.